As does any successful organization or business, the federal government operates from a budget that serves as a financial plan for the coming fiscal year. A tool that estimates revenues and expenditures, the federal budget serves as a guide or blueprint for operating the government and implementing federal policy. It also expresses the intent of the government in financial terms. Though the federal budget originates with and expresses the agenda of the President, the actual planning, writing, and monitoring of the budget is in the hands of the Office of Management and Budget, otherwise known as the OMB. Because this is such a huge responsibility, the OMB has become the second largest and most influential office of the executive branch, following only the White House. The director of the OMB, a powerful position, is appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate. During the summer each year, all government departments and agencies submit a budget proposal to the OMB. The President takes these proposals under consideration, and then, under his direction, the OMB draws up a budget. The budget generally reflects the President's agenda. That is, programs he wants to see grow may get budget increases. Programs he does not feel strongly about may endure budget cuts. Sometimes the President's budget objectives are influenced by the promises he has made during his campaign, such as cutting taxes or creating programs the public supports. To produce the federal budget and advise the President on technical aspects of the process, the OMB relies on economic, financial, and accounting expertise. Eventually, after much work, the OMB submits budget proposals to the President. Once he is satisfied with it, the President sends the budget to Congress for review and action. During the development stage of the budget, lobbyists can have a great impact on how programs and departments are affected. Lobbyists represent many diverse groups who are dependent on federal funding, programs, or actions such as industries, companies, unions, groups of voters, and even foreign countries. To influence the budget decisions made by the OMB, lobbyists may provide key information about the concerns of their interest groups. State and local governments can also influence how federal money is dispersed. For instance, a state's Department of Agriculture office may want legislators in Washington to know how crucial federal funding is to crop production in their state. It is not uncommon for intergovernmental lobbies to include mayors, governors, superintendents of schools, or state highway commissioners. Because so many programs, actions, and initiatives depend on federal funding, the responsibilities of the Office of Management and Budget are obviously very important and influential. Essentially, receiving funding from the OMB either makes or breaks most of them. Although it is referred to as a budget, the federal budget is different than a family's household budget. It is not intended to be a tool to compare income and spending and thus adjust one to balance with the other. Rather, with the federal budget, Congress allocates funds and levies taxes by means of bills that are mostly independent of each other.
The budget is a mythical beanbag. Congress votes mythical beans into it and then tries to reach in and pull real beans out. Will Rogers.
Depending on various factors, each year there is a budget surplus or budget deficit. Simply put, if the government takes in more money in taxes than it spends on its programs and debts, then there is a surplus. Since 1969, there have only been a few years with surplus funds. These typically occur in years when high taxes are being levied, there is low unemployment, or the economy is booming and producing a larger than expected national income, resulting in a larger sum of tax money coming into the government coffers. In years when there is a surplus, the excess revenue is generally applied to reducing the national debt. In some years, the economy or unforeseen debts can result in the government taking in less than it spends in a year. In these years, there is a budget deficit, and the government must then borrow the difference to fund all of the approved programs and actions. This borrowing of money adds to the national debt. The national debt is the sum of all deficits and other unpaid debts that the federal government has incurred. In the year 2004, the national debt was in the $6 trillion range and is continuing to grow due to interest on the debt.
Blessed are the young, for they shall inherit the national debt. Herbert Hoover.
As the national debt increases, the interest on that debt continues to grow, taking up a greater and greater share of the entire budget. With more interest to pay, more of each year's budget must be dedicated to paying the interest, which means more revenues must be taken in to cover the increases. Currently, 15% of the budget goes to paying interest on money borrowed in past years.
The national budget must be balanced. The public debt must be reduced. The arrogance of the authorities must be moderated and controlled. Payments to foreign governments must be reduced if the nation doesn't want to go bankrupt. People must again learn to work instead of living on public assistance. Marcus Tullius Cicero, 55 BC.
Typically, factors that cause budget deficits and could cause the national debt to balloon are continued recession, high unemployment, unforeseen military and national security expenses, as well as increases in Social Security and Medicare benefits. In spite of all the political maneuvering and lobbying to see who gets what in the federal budget, there is relatively little deviation from one year to the next. Generally, the budget pie is sliced up into a 15% piece for defense, a 15% piece for interest on the national debt, a 53% piece for entitlements such as Social Security, Medicare, and veterans benefits, and 17% piece for non-defense discretionary spending. A new federal budget is developed on an annual basis, so a very specific timetable is necessary for completing the budget and its approval. The Office of Management and Budget, or the OMB, follows a schedule that enables the President to present his budget to Congress on the first Monday in February, amid great fanfare. Then Congress has until October 1st to review, revise, and approve the budget. The schedule for preparing the federal budget begins in the spring. Shortly after one budget is delivered to Congress, work on the following year's budget begins, some 15 months before it will be implemented. The process begins with the President and OMB reviewing government projects and establishing budget guidelines for various agencies. During the summer, the OMB takes these guidelines to all the agencies and departments in the bureaucracy so that each agency can prepare a detailed estimate of its fiscal needs. During the fall, all the agencies must return their budget estimates and requests to the OMB, which then makes recommendations to the President. The President reviews the recommendations and makes any revisions he feels necessary. Then the OMB returns the affected proposals back to the agencies for revision. By the time winter rolls around, the OMB has finalized its budget proposal. The President reviews the thousands of pages and makes any further revisions to the budget he feels necessary. Then on the first Monday in February, the President delivers his budget proposal to Congress. By mid-February, the Congressional Budget Office has reviewed the proposal and submitted a report on it for consideration. Various actions may result at this stage. For instance, the House and Senate Budget Committees may submit resolutions that propose spending ceilings for different areas, such as health, defense, and education. Congress must complete any resolutions they are proposing to the budget by April 15th. On May 15th, the House begins considering any appropriation bills for the budget. These appropriation bills are pieces of legislation that enable the government to disperse money to the different agencies and departments. Action on any appropriation bills are targeted for completion by June 30th. When each committee approves its proposed appropriation, Congress passes the proposed budget and returns it to the President for his signature. Then, if the President has signed off, the new budget takes effect on October 1st, the beginning of the federal government's fiscal year. If the President and Congress cannot reach consensus on a new budget by October 1st, Congress can pass a continuance, a bill that essentially extends the previous year's budget and keeps funding moving to the agencies and departments. This prevents potentially disastrous financial dislocations for organizations that have planned on government funding.